fellas here from next Pittsburgh. We've driven an hour and a half away from Pittsburgh to Hermitage, Pennsylvania. We're getting a tour of the Joy Cone Factory. Come along! We're here with David, who's the president and CEO here. We've put on our hair nets, our beard nets. We've got goggles on because we're starting with the beginning of the cone making process. This is the batter room.
That's right. This is our batter room for sugar cones and waffle cones. And it's kind of like the kitchen of the operation. Okay. It's where we bring all the ingredients together, water, flour, brown sugar for our sugar and waffle cones, and other ingredients from there.
And so can we see that happening right here?
Yes, so right now we have someone making a batter. That's a brown sugar bag. We're pretty much the only cone operation that is using dark brown sugar. Most people will use a white sugar and mix molasses in. It's a little easier to do it that way. It's a little less expensive to do it that way. Yeah. But we think the brown sugar really gives the waffle cones and sugar cones a nice pop, nice sweet taste, yeah. And also gives them a little strength as well.
And so what happens in there? Is inside that giant container, are things being stirred up?
Exactly. It's a giant mixer. Like you would have a bowl in your kitchen to mix things up. That's what's happening there. So water goes in first, sugar, flour, smaller ingredients. It gets mixed up where that person's working, and then it gets pumped in over to these coolers. So these coolers here keep the batter fresh while it's going from here and being pumped out to all the ovens in the floor. The batter that we saw in the batter room is being pumped through these white pipes that are coming down that are insulated. The batter goes into the batter pan right behind you, and then the batter is then being sprayed on the bottom of a waffle plate. So it's kind of like a waffle grid that you might have in your kitchen. Top plate comes down and closes it, and it's baked perfectly flat. It makes one revolution, and then it opens up here over my left shoulder, and we call these arms grab the patty off of the plate and bring it in to now get formed into a bowl.
How long does it take for it to bake?
It's a little over a minute for one trip around. Some ovens, that patty is twisted into a waffle cone. For this oven, it's being pressed into a mini bowl.
So it sort of like punches it almost.
Correct, yeah. The batter goes into a placement there, and the press comes down. The shell of the waffle forms around the press.
And you've been involved in this business since you were a kid pretty much, because this is a family business.
Pretty much. I grew up with it. I started when I was about 10 years old, cutting grass, taking care of the yard work outside, along with my cousin and siblings. Uh-huh. Yes.
And so how did it all get started? Did your grandfather start the company?
So my grandfather started it in 1918. So we're over 100 years old now. He was a Lebanese immigrant, came to the United States just after the turn of the century, and had, like a lot of immigrants at that time, a kind of an entrepreneurial spirit about them. They wanted to make a better life for themselves. And a fellow Lebanese immigrant had a hand-operated cone oven. And my grandfather's name was Albert, had already done a couple small businesses, and he said, "Albert, you're a good businessman. You run the business. I'll make the cones." And so that's how the business got started. He had a fire during World War II, 1943, and it never really got back to where it was pre-fire. But he kept the business alive, but it was kind of a slow decline for the next several years. And then my father, Joe George, and his brother Mike took over in 1964. Uh-huh. So at that point in time, though, they literally had one customer left. Total sales were about $25,000. So it was on death's door. Yeah. But my dad was committed to turning the business around, and the first few years were touch and go. And but after that, we introduced the retail brand in the late 60s. So that's when the Joy name really started to get used.
Before you were just selling them to other folks.
And we were just George and Thomas Cone Company selling to an ice cream shop. Great. And really from that time on, we started a nice growth trajectory for the next several decades.
How many cones are you making a day or a year?
So in the summertime here in this plant alone, we're making about 10 million cones a day. And as a corporation, now we have plants in Hermitage, this is our largest, Flagstaff and Lamar's, Iowa. We're making about 3.5 billion cones a year.
That's insane.
It is. That's a lot of cones.
These waffle bowls are sort of heading down the line, and now they're going to be packaged up. Is that the next thing that happens?
Right, so when they come out of the oven, they're still pretty warm. So we want them to cool gently. So now they're going to put them in what we call a single-phase corrugate, a little white piece of corrugate that protects the bowls so they don't get broken on the way to the customer.
And sometimes, like some cones and some bowls do get broken as they're going through this process. And so what do you do with like little bits of cone?
Right, so we collect those and then we convey them to a grinder, and it'll break up the bowls or cone scrap into a hopper, and then we sell that to farmers or feed brokers because they'll use that to feed animals. And then it's going to slide into the wrapper because we want to overwrap the whole package.
When they're just like sheets of plastic and you're forming a bag around it.
When the consumer takes it home, they open it up, they have a nice sealed bag inside the box.
And this is, I wasn't expecting, it's like a little airport here. The waffle bowls have to go through a metal detector.
That's right. Every product we make, we want to seal it completely, which we just went through the wrapper over there. And once it's fully sealed and nothing else can get inside, we want to metal detect it.
Okay.
So, but you know, when people say, "Oh, how often can that happen?" Well, I told you we make over 3 billion cones. If it's 1 in a million, it's going to happen 3,000 times. So you got to check every single cone, every single waffle bowl that we make.
And so what kind of stuff could be in there? Like maybe at the flour factory, there's like a little weird metal tab got in there or something?
Exactly. There's all kinds of times where something could be introduced.
Yeah.
Now, there's control points throughout, so you can catch it typically before it gets here.
Yeah.
But just in case it doesn't get caught, we'll catch it here. And then this machine is going to grab an individual carton. It pops it open because they're very flat, and then it eventually pushes the bowls into the open carton. And then we have to seal it and move it on to the case packer.
Well, mechanically, it's wild because to me it almost seems harder to put them in a box than it does to make the waffle bowl.
When you're dealing with bowls and cones and everything, they're very fragile. So yes, it's got to work just right. The timing has to be perfect. You got to handle them gently, but we make a lot of them, so we've had a lot of experience and practice.
Yeah. We've just grabbed a box, so these are ready to head to like Giant Eagle or whatever other supermarket now.
Right. This is our Joy Enjoyable. That's the one we've been seeing being baked. It's a smaller waffle bowl. But one of the nice things about it, and you'll see it on every retail Joy carton, is our call out to St. Jude.
Oh yeah.
So in 2018, we celebrated our 100-year anniversary, and we did that with a $100,000 donation to St. Jude. And we've renewed it every year since then. So the St. Jude logo is on all the boxes, and we're really proud to support them.
Well, we've seen this whole process, and now I'm curious, could I try a waffle bowl that's like right out of the oven?
It's the best way to have them, absolutely.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm taking one right off the... It's so good. It's so fresh. It's like hadn't been out of the oven for like 30 seconds. It's amazing. And so this is your warehouse or one of your warehouses?
This is one of our warehouses. This room is about 100,000 square feet. Wow. If we walked through that wall over there, you'd be in another 100,000 square foot warehouse. Cones are bulky, take up a lot of space,
Right.
and we can't make enough cones right now, spring and summer, to reach the summer demand. So we have to start building in the fall and winter. And if you do that, you have to have space to store them until they're ready to go to the customers.
And so, like, do you ever think about what else you could do with this equipment? You have experimented a little bit. They're like Oreo cones now, but like, what about a savory cone, like a rosemary thyme cone?
So we've talked about those things. Yeah. So cones are kind of a niche product already. So when you start doing different flavors, it's like a niche of a niche, and then so you don't get quite the demand. But Oreo is an exception for that, of course. But we're always looking for a different flavor to try. So
keep coming up with ideas. Who knows?
We'll do our best.
Well, David, thank you so much for the tour. This was so cool, and it's just wild because I feel like I've always seen Joy cones on the shelves, and now I know where they come from. So thank you.
It's our pleasure.